Hi YouTube. This is a video tutorial of twisting side angle pose, Parivrita Parshva Konasana, and twisting triangle pose, Parivrita Trikonasana. These postures are different than the extended triangle and the extended side angle, which is the previous video. I'm going to step back a little bit just so we can see. And that we want for these postures the hips to be mostly square in space, mostly pointing straight ahead. And so for many people that means that the stance between the feet is going to have to be a little wider right to left, and you may even need to turn the back foot in. So if I was preparing for a twisting triangle, it'd be something like that. And then I get my frontal hip bones pointing straight ahead, and my navel is pointing straight ahead. Or my frontal hip bones are in line with my nipples, which is another way you can think about this. And what happens if I show on the other side is that if I were to say step back here, and I have my heel to my inner arch, and I'll turn my back foot to 90 degrees. And if I try to square the hips, I'm a fairly mobile person. I'm a fairly flexible person. I have a decent amount of range of motion in both my pelvis and my spine. And I don't square up here. My frontal hip bones, if I use my hands to extend forward, they're pointing towards this corner of the room, and my navel is also pointing there. And that's going to limit me as I start to create a spinal twist. And so for most people, a little bit of a wider stance and a turning of the foot in, that gets the pelvis mostly in line, and then the spine is actually free to twist. The other thing that can happen is that if you're too militant about this back leg, and if I keep trying to turn, my foot is planted to the floor. And sure, it could start to move and lift, but if I don't let it and I keep turning, the thing directly in the middle is my knee. And I've seen people injure their knees being militant in these postures and not giving themselves a little bit of a turn into the back foot. So that's the caveat for these postures, is that you really want to take a stance that's wide enough right to left to allow the hips to start to square, and you want to give yourself freedom in how much that back foot turns in. For many people, about 45 degrees is useful. So if this was 90, right, toes are pointing towards the side of the room, 45, toes are kind of pointing past the dog. So I like to learn these postures, which is not the way, or I should say I like to teach these postures, and I think it's useful for people to learn them, which is not the order in which they're practiced in Ashtanga Yoga. Once you learn them, you can try to practice them in that way. And so instead of stepping to the side, which I showed in the triangle and side angle pose, something like that, technically stepping to the right, I'm going to step back. And so if I step my left foot back into a lunge, and a lunge is a useful shape, this will be for the twisting side angle posture. In the lunge, you take the back leg totally out of the equation. The heel is lifted, the leg is pointing straight ahead. And then there can be a twisting here. If I touch my fingertips together, and again, use this as a reference point that the circle here lines up with my breastbone, and as I turn, I want the chest to turn with it, not just say moving the arms, chest still ahead, shoulders have moved. So as I twist, and then I'm going to bring this left elbow towards my right knee. And for some people, this will be a good twisting side angle pose. It's a twisting lunge. Right? It's possible over time that the tricep slides down the outer leg, and the armpit and knee can connect. The top arm, in this case the right arm, because the right leg is forward, can reach up and overhead. It exaggerates the side bend. And then this other arm can reach towards the floor. The final touch on this posture would be to touch the outer foot to the floor. And if that feels okay, if you don't lose your spinal twist, you can work that way. For many people, the lunge will be better. I had an Iyengar yoga teacher who said that over many visits to India at the Iyengar Institute, that Mr. Iyengar would practice that posture with his heel up and the leg in a lunge unless someone was taking a photo. So you can take that for what it's worth. It's anecdotal evidence, but Mr. Iyengar was a better asana practitioner than probably anybody alive. And if he often didn't touch the outer foot to the floor. So again, I've twisted, I'm bringing the right elbow towards the left knee. This might be the pose for some people, including something like that. Right? If the tricep slides down, eventually the armpit and knee can connect. This is a lot like Marichasana. This arm would reach down. This arm reaches up. And I can perhaps turn that foot out and touch it down, but I don't want this butt to move towards the camera. So that hip has to stay moving backwards. That's probably the main cheat that you'll see as someone starts to work through the outer foot. The drishti would technically be the hand. And then I can find my lunge, and you can step forward. And so this stepping forward and back is useful because as you step back, it keeps the hips mostly square. Right there. It's okay. Good boy. Yep. He was in the way. And if I were to work with the triangle posture, I could step back, and it's a very similar shape. So I've stepped back, I'm going to take my stance a little wider, I'm going to turn my back foot in, get my hips pointing straight ahead. I can bend into this knee a little bit, can twist to the right, and bring the left elbow towards the right knee. This might be the posture for some people. Some people might be able to straighten the leg. That would be the next step. And if the leg straightens, you could place the hand on the shin, see if the belly and chest will turn a little bit more, and the right arm can raise up. If the range of motion is there, you can bring the hand to the ankle. Some people work hand on the floor outside of the foot. I find that I'm able to keep the most integrity in my spine, resting the hand on the ankle, and I build more balance that way. The hand on the floor is a third leg to my stool, the stool of my body. Here I only have 2 points of contact, the 2 feet. Come to a little lunge and step forward. On the second side, this is the right leg stepping back. Again, I give myself the freedom in my stance to get the front hips and the navel pointing straight ahead. Little bend in the knee to start. Take the hamstring out of it to begin with. That's going to mobilize my spine. Allow me to twist, and then create this little side bend. If this leg wants to straighten somewhat, I can rest the hand. The belly can turn, the chest can turn, the collarbones can turn. I have the range of motion. This hand could come onto the ankle. I could look up. The drishti would be this hand. If balance is an issue, or if that hurts the neck, looking at the floor also works. And I'm trying not to let, in this case it's the left hip because my left leg is forward, I'm trying not to let this hip pop out. I want this hip to be moving back, that takes the other hip forward, and that exaggerates the twist in the spine. Unwind, transition to a lunge, and I can stand up. So for these frontal postures, Warrior One would be one of those postures, what's sometimes called pyramid pose, but Parsvottanasana, whether the hands are on the floor, there can be a hands in a prayer behind the back, some people reach back. That's a frontal pose. Anything where the frontal hips are staying, pointing straight ahead, I like this stepping back more than the stepping to the side. But I'll show with the stepping to the side variations, and I'll do them in the order, closer to the order they would show up in Ashtanga. I'll do the triangle and then the side angle. And so it could be a Yekam, which is 1, inhale, you step out, set up the feet, Dve, exhale, so I'm twisting, right? Even if I was here, right? That knee could be a little bent if needed. I'm just showing from straight, so there's a twist, and then I'm taking that hand towards the ankle. That would be Dve, exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 breaths. There's a Trini, inhale, and then a Chatwari, exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 breaths. Pancha, which is 5, inhale, and then Samastitihi. So in the beginning, it can be useful to have your hands like this because it gives you reference points. That people, I found that it's very easy for people to learn how to twist like this. If they're like this, it becomes harder, but it's the same thing. Elbows are bent, arms are straight, right? Arms are straight, elbows are bent, and so you're just adding an extra stage here, but it gives people the reference point of keeping the chest in line with the breastbone and then bringing that elbow towards the knee, which is the same equivalent. If the elbow straightens, it takes the hand to the foot. So that was triangle, or the twisting triangle. And then the side angle. I'll step to the right this time, you'll see it from the back. Yekam, inhale. Gonna turn, right? I'll come to the lunge. Dve, exhale. I want that to be the final icing on my cake, the back foot. Because it's not that important. You can stay in the lunge the whole time, your whole yoga career. You could stay in the lunge and get a lot of benefit. This is Trini, inhale, coming up, right? Whether the arms are here or the fingertips touch. And then it's a Chatwari, exhale. Again, everything is set. My spine is in its shape. My front leg is in its shape. I could try to touch that outer foot to the floor if you want to. But the lunge is nice. And then it's again Pancha, which is 5, inhale, and Samastitihi. So the next video I make will be probably just a demonstration of showing triangle into twisting triangle, and then side angle into twisting side angle pose. And that is the order that they show up in the Ashtanga standing sequence. But again, the order in which they're practiced is not always the best order to learn them. That triangle and side angle have a lot in common. Twisting triangle, twisting side angle have a lot in common. And I think if you group them together, you get a better understanding of what the postures are trying to do. And then once you know them, you can practice them in the prescribed order if you'd like. So thank you. Namaste.